welcome to another episode of One on One. I am so excited to be joined by Khuloud Al Nuwais, Chief Sustainability Officer of Emirates Foundation and Secretary General of NIMA Steering Committee.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here today
No, thank you.
and excited about sharing some of our key insights around the importance of addressing food loss and waste.
How have you been? What is your year like? How's it been so far for you?
Very busy.
Can you imagine?
We started the year hitting the ground, running, because Ramadan is around the corner,
Yes.
as you know. So we have a lot of preparations. Usually this is the peak season for NAMA, where we work with a lot of partners across the food supply chain to co-create the right solutions to address food loss and waste.
I'm very excited to have this conversation with you because I think the insights that have come out from your organization have been so interesting. I think we should start by getting your definition of sustainability.
Sustainability, I think sometimes means different things to different people, but I like to simplify things always. It's just making sure that we respect our resources and we utilize them efficiently so that there is enough resources for future generations.
Sure. In your role as Chief Sustainability Officer for the Foundation, as well as the Secretary General, can you tell me how either they overlap or complement each other, or maybe even conflict with each other?
No, they're very aligned.
That's good.
I actually work on sustainability initiatives and circularity initiatives. NAMA has been very dear to my heart, so I've been working on NAMA, the National Food Loss and Waste Initiative, for the past 3 years now. And basically the aim is really to make sure that we become more conscious consumers. The aim is to change the current behaviors and practices across the supply chain that are leading to food loss or food waste, with the aim of reducing food loss and waste by 50% by the year 2030, which is very much in line with the UAE food security strategy and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals number 12.3.
You know, I've heard you say in a few interviews before that this is a collaborative effort. It needs stakeholder participation from every sector, private sector, public sector, NGOs. For you personally, when did you take up the cause for sustainability?
It's been more than 10 years, and I'm very passionate about it. And I believe it's what gets me excited, what gets me to wake up every morning and come. It's what drives me to achieve, and I believe it has huge impact, positive impact on the planet, on human beings.
Yes.
And this is what's important. This is really what drives my passion, is making something that's impactful and that will touch people in a positive way.
Before we talk about NIMA's objectives, I'd like to ask what are some of the challenges that you have seen when it comes to the problem of food waste and loss?
I will start perhaps with us as humans. Sometimes we don't see that we are part of the problem. I believe that we really need to make small changes to our daily habits as individuals so that we can achieve bigger impact that will allow us to address food waste. For example, it's interesting sometimes we as individuals or households immediately point at the food services sector or the hospitality sector, highlighting that, you know, they are the ones who are contributing to the problem. But we forget that actually we're the consumers. We're the ones who are piling up our plates at buffet settings. We're the ones who are over ordering in restaurants. We're the ones who are over ordering even online when we are at home, or overcooking. Unfortunately, Ramadan is the month where we tend to overcook because there's a lot of socializing, there's a lot of gatherings. So I believe Naama has a huge role to change people's mindsets, to get them to think more about how to handle food, to get them to think about some of the daily habits that can be easily changed, that will have a huge impact on reducing food waste.
How do you plan on doing that? Because we need awareness. So awareness and understanding is a very important part of the whole mission. But outside of that, what else have you got in the pipeline in preparation for this?
So thank you for mentioning this. Definitely awareness is really important, and we've actually launched a national awareness campaign last year that will continue running, and we're preparing also more messaging and more campaigns for Ramadan. And I must say that what sits at the heart of what we do is really behavioral change and using behavioral science as a tool to help us shift some of the existing behaviors. With regards to the awareness side of things, it is really important that we increase the UAE community's level of awareness around the importance of reducing food waste. I think sometimes people don't realize the economic, social, and environmental impact of food waste. Globally, 1/3 of the total food produced tends to go to waste. Almost 8 to 10% of the carbon emissions comes from food waste that ends up at landfill.
Right.
And then it globally costs the economy around $1 trillion. So really the impact, the negative impact of food waste is huge. And I believe we have a great opportunity through the awareness campaigns to build people's knowledge, to educate even our youngsters around the importance of handling food. So last year we already launched a national campaign in collaboration with key strategic partners and sponsors to educate the UAE public on the importance of food loss and waste. We will continue to do more of that this year, especially now in Ramadan. We're preparing for a Ramadan campaign. And what sits also at the heart of Naama is behavioral changes and the importance of using behavioral science as a tool to shift people's behaviors by simply co-creating the right solutions with the right sector and partners across the supply chain to change and shift some of the current practices that are actually leading to food waste. And this is where we've collaborated with the hospitality sector in the last 2 years. We've done a lot of different trials to implement simple, easy behavioral nudges to create defaults that support that shift in behavior. So, we've introduced a lot of messages around the buffets. We've replaced bigger plates with smaller plates. We've introduced portion size control. We've introduced measurement tools so people can actually know how much they're wasting. And all of these are simple things that have allowed us to reduce food waste by almost a range of 40% all the way up to 60%
already
in some settings.
Wow.
Depending on, of course, the readiness also of the partner to actually apply and implement some of these. And this is really amazing reduction, and it's also based on evidence, based on data. And we will continue to do more of these solutions to scale up our impact across the UAE. What we've also done as a second step to that is we've created guidelines that could help us in the scale-up process, that could be references for our partners in the industry, in the hospitality sector, in the food services sector, where they could follow simple, low-cost nudges that can help them reduce food waste in their own setting.
Okay.
And we've also developed a zero waste guide specifically for events. Again, this is a very hospitable culture.
Yes.
Where there's a lot of big events, whether they are weddings or corporate events. We want to make sure that these events are also zero food waste events. So we created a conscious catering guide,
Okay.
building up on the COP28 conscious catering initiative that was launched at the time. And we basically, the guide lists 10 steps. They are very simple steps that could be followed by any event caterer or organizer, where they could follow these simple steps to make sure that the event is zero food waste. So we really want the industry to make use of these resources because these have been trialed and tested and have proven success and have proved key reductions. So we want to make sure that the industry makes use of these resources. They're widely available on our website, and we will be also continuing this type of work to make sure we are addressing different practices across the supply chain, not only on the hospitality, but also in retail, at the household level. And this is where I would like to also highlight a unique initiative that we're currently conducting. For the first time in the UAE, we are conducting a UAE-wide baseline study that will allow us to measure actual food loss and food waste at the household level. And it will allow us to identify where food loss is occurring the most and where food waste is occurring the most, so that we can create the right strategies for the UAE, taking into consideration not only international standards when it comes to the methodology of the measurement, but also the local context, to make sure that we have the right methodology that suits the nature of the UAE and that allows us to, one, develop the right food loss and waste strategy based on actual real evidence and data and actual measurement, and also allows us to create a UAE index for food loss and for food waste, so that we are able to measure our performance in the long term towards our target of reducing food loss and waste by 50% by the year 2030.
Khulu, just to be super clear, can you differentiate food loss and food waste?
This is a very important question, and thank you for highlighting this, because a lot of people don't know what is the difference, and they actually require different strategies. So food loss is the amount of food or local produce that tends to go to waste before it even reaches the consumer as a result of logistical challenges, as a result of lack of storage, proper storage and cold chain facilities, as a result of transportation. So this requires different strategies, different logistical strategies. Also, what's worth mentioning is the odd vegetables. Sometimes this is what gets lost in
Right.
the supply chain, because they are categorized as grade B produce, and they're not attractive sometimes for the consumer,
Right.
although they're
Perfectly
perfectly
fine.
edible.
Yeah.
And they unfortunately taste really good, but they tend to go to waste.
Right. The not so good looking fruits and vegetables.
Yes, exactly. And this is where also through our awareness campaign, we are trying to educate people that they taste the same and they're perfectly edible. And we need to make sure that we are not wasting them.
Yes.
On the food waste element, this is the amount of food that we as consumers tend to discard.
Right.
Because we overbuy or overorder, or sometimes, we tend to buy a lot of food, we store it, but it expires before we are
Able to eat it.
able to consume
Yeah.
it or
Yeah.
eat it. So again, this is an important differentiator for the community. It is also important to highlight that, we as consumers, although the perception is it's the industry that's wasting the most,
Right.
but we as consumers, households, tend globally, the statistics show that, we contribute more to food being wasted.
I'm so fascinated by the UAE index that you just mentioned about being able to at some point actually measure food loss and wastage on a household level. Can you tell me how this is going to work?
Yes, this is a very important question, but a technical one.
Right. If you can, whatever you can say.
The first step is this is a process that requires everyone's engagement.
Sure.
Meaning all the sectors, samples of households, samples of retailers, samples from the hospitality sector.
Sure.
And they will be required to join us on this journey. This is an 18-month journey.
Okay.
That will require us to measure actual food loss and waste. It will require that industry and households report to us on this data.
Sure.
We will analyze this data. We will I will perhaps zoom in a bit on the process at the household level.
Okay.
Where we will be giving colored bags to the households to help us separate food waste,
Sure.
different items of food waste, because we don't want to only measure the actual food waste that's happening or the composition of the food waste out of the general waste, but we want to also identify what are the key commodities or items that tend to go to waste the most.
Right.
So we will be conducting 2 pilots to also capture the seasonality. One pilot will be actually conducted next week with a small sample size of households, and the second pilot will be done in May. It's not an easy process because it's like almost creating a movement.
Yes.
Where you want to take people on a journey with you. It's a great opportunity for us to educate everyone along the journey of measuring, but also what doesn't get measured doesn't get managed really well. And the aim is really for us to understand where do we stand today with our waste levels and what kind of interventions we need to co-create with our partners to be able to continue to address food loss and food waste in the long term.
And of course, I'm assuming once you have all of the data after this 18 months, then you will know how to proceed from there and how you want to sort of make this more permanent in every household.
Exactly. And it will educate us on the current levels and what are the types of strategies, policies, perhaps that we need to put in place to make sure that we continue to reduce food waste in the UAE.
I know that you've run a survey. It's how the UAE eats.
Correct.
What was some of the most fascinating insights that came out of that for you?
So I will start with perhaps the top one, and that is almost 85% of the 6,000 residents that were surveyed said that they don't know what kind of actions they as individuals need to take to actually impact or reduce food waste.
Right.
So, and this is why, you know, through our campaigns, through our behavioral change programs, we try to educate people on the simple and easy things that they can do at home. But also we try to profile some of the nudges and how simple they are and how really they can contribute to big change. And the second element is really giving people tips around, because we've seen that almost more than 36% tend to overorder.
Right.
And this is huge. And we want to make sure that people become more conscious consumers.
Right.
They become more mindful of their portion sizes. They become more mindful consumers of how to handle food waste.
Right.
We give simple tips around, you know, don't go and order or buy food when you're very hungry.
Yes.
Because you're likely
to buy more than
to
you
buy
need.
more.
Yeah.
Make sure that when you buy, don't overbuy in store. Unfortunately, one bad habit is we tend to overbuy and overstore. And sometimes we store it, but we never consume it. And it ends up going to waste. So really making sure on how to organize our cabinets, our fridges, so we tend to consume the things before they actually expire.
Right.
But also another important factor is really educating people at home. You know, making sure, you know, I'm at work, but we do have domestic helpers at home. So we need to educate them also on how to handle food, how to manage things before they expire, how to make sure that they are served to the family before they expire.
These are all really small changes.
Yes.
I suppose we as consumers buy products and consume it, but we never think about where the bits that we don't consume, where do they go?
Yes.
We don't think about that.
And we don't think about the impact.
And we don't think about the impact.
The negative impact on our environment. Many people don't link food waste to climate change.
Right, yes.
And that's really important as well.
Because like if there was a massive red sticker on everything that we bought that says, once you buy this item, these pieces of it will go here.
Yeah.
And you see that, it might make you change your mind, you know?
Exactly. And now, more than ever, we are seeing the impact of climate change on our environment. We're seeing all the crises that are happening globally as a result of climate change. So that itself is a huge alarm for all of us to
really
start practicing more sustainable habits.
The behavioral insights to better understand how consumers consume food in order to understand how to eradicate the problem is such an excellent initiative and idea. How did you get to this point? Because it could have just been, you know, very analytical or logical, but how did you get to this point where you wanted to really understand cultural behavior?
I think the UAE is always pioneering when it comes to going the extra mile and making sure that we are using the right approaches, the right tools, the right technologies, the right innovations. And this is where, you know, we've realized that it is not just behavioral science is not just a theoretical approach, but it's something that can be applied. And for the first time, we have worked with the behavioral science unit and the behavioral science team also in the UK to make sure we design these nudges based on the local context, making sure that we monitor the performance and see the results if it's really actually making a difference or not. And it is important, it was important for us to also make sure that, you know, building evidence and data is going to help us in making the right decisions moving forward, especially when we want to scale up our impact across the nation.
Right.
Because NACMA is not only mandated to address food loss and waste only in Abu Dhabi, but across all Emirates.
Right.
And therefore, it is important that we identify the right approaches that can help us scale up easily. But it also can help us design the right policies.
Yes.
Then can help us create a more enabling environment to achieve the targeted reductions for the UAE.
Would you agree that this model from the UAE could be used as a great example globally for other countries and continents that want to eradicate?
Definitely. We are already, although our focus is UAE, but we are already continuously approached by international partners who are interested in knowing more about some of the pioneering trials and initiatives that we have ran. We've actually managed to build case studies around these that are being shared with, you know, the United Nations Environment Programme, with RAP in the UK, with the UN FAO, but also with international partners that we have built in the last few years. We've visited France, we've visited Denmark, we've visited Japan to exchange our knowledge around, I mean, these are countries that have done really well to reduce food loss and waste by whether it's through implementing key policies, whether it's through building a culture early on that is focused on sustainable practices. So we have seen a lot of interest from these countries to learn more about some of these behavioral science trials that we have implemented here. So it's really a two-way conversation. It's an exchange of knowledge that benefits all parties. So it's a win-win situation for both.
I've never been, but I once listened to an interview and somebody had said, when you live in Japan, you actually have to carry your waste with you. In a sense, it's not very glamorous, but you have to do so much of recycling to the T that you actually have to carry your waste with you. So you actually walk around with your waste and realize as an individual how much waste you contribute.
Correct.
Which is, that's startling.
Yes, so when you're actually walking around the city in Japan, you don't find as many bins.
Interesting.
And this is why you have to carry your waste around with you, and it's a great way to make you more conscious of how much waste you're generating. And actually, this is on another note, when we did some of the trials that we have done with some of the hotels, one of the nudges we introduced was specifically designed in canteens, staff canteens. And this is where we replaced black garbage bags with transparent garbage bags. And the idea was when staff or employees are scraping off food leftovers off their plate, they're actually seeing how much food is going into the bin. And this is again another great example of how do you educate people and make them more conscious consumers of the amount of waste that they're generating. Another important project that I would like to highlight that we have trialed and now we are working on scaling up is at the schools level.
Okay.
So we have collaborated with JICE, which is the Japanese International Cooperation Center, to adopt one of their best practices, which is a software that is designed to educate children on and teenagers on how to measure food waste that's left on their plate and convert that to carbon emissions.
Wow.
So every day, it's called the Na'ma Diary. Every day, the kids for a whole week would have to measure how much food is left on their plates. They take a picture of that and they upload it to the software. And they have to actually, how much does that translate in terms of carbon emissions? So if they lift a piece of pizza,
right,
what is the equivalency of carbon emissions
for that piece of pizza?
And what's interesting is towards the end of the week, you actually start to see more empty plates. And what that teaches them is to be more conscious consumers. It teaches them to reduce the amount of food that they put on their plates,
right,
so they're not wasting as much. But it also, kids are great champions and they basically have huge influence on their peers, but also as part of the households,
right,
they influence also their parents and the rest of the households. So this has been a great trial for us that we have done at the school level, and now we will be scaling up the school program across more schools eventually.
Congratulations, that sounds like a fantastic initiative. Starting to create that conscious mindset at such an early age can only be beneficial.
It's a must, I must say, and starting to educate the next generation so that becomes embedded in their lifestyle is going to be a crucial next step for us.
I love it. I can't wait to see more data coming out from you as you continue to roll this out in more schools, because it will be so interesting.
Yes.
When it comes to the community fridges as part of the Ramadan campaign, how do they contribute to reducing food waste while supporting, the cause?
So this is a very important question. And before I explain that to you, I would like to highlight perhaps something that is sort of a key enabler for Na'ma.
Okay.
And that is innovation and technology. We have invested in a competition, not just a local competition, but an international competition that is done in collaboration with Tamkeen, which is the Food Tech Challenge.
Okay.
This competition gives us access to new technologies and innovations that create efficiencies in the food ecosystem.
Right.
The smart fridges is one innovation that we have decided to test and utilize.
Nice.
To make sure that we are able to redirect food that remains edible from going to waste and from ending up at landfill. So we have worked last year in Ramadan to collect food surpluses that have not been touched from hotels, from caterers, and these have been repurposed and have been placed in these smart fridges, and they have been accessible to low-income beneficiaries.
Sure.
We make sure that these fridges are placed in the right communities and the right places where it is easy for low-income families
to
have access to such free meals.
Right.
It's food that needs to be cherished.
Yes. And in such a giving spirit of Ramadan as well.
Exactly. Noting also that we are blessed here in the UAE. When you look at global hunger,
right?
It's around, you have almost 733 million people that go to bed hungry every day. So I must say that we are very blessed here in the UAE. And these community fridges has really helped us redirect some of these food surpluses to benefit some of our beneficiaries and to create great social impact. In addition to making sure that surplus food is being redirected to those who need it the most through the community fridges, we also think of the unedible food or the food waste itself. And again, here we tend to work with partners to make sure that that is also composited and is turned into other usable products. So again, this is where we make sure we have a holistic approach, coming back to the innovation and technology piece, where we make sure that we work with different innovations and startups that help converting some of this composite into fertilizer or into pet food, for example. Some people also convert, for example, cooking oil into diesel. So we want to make sure that we create circularity where there is zero food waste, and there is also zero food waste at landfill.
So redirecting it away, right, from the landfills.
So the redirection is really important in the sense surplus food is redirected to beneficiaries, and the unedible food is being composited into other usable products.
Excellent. Volunteers are a key part of this whole campaign. How are you mobilizing more people to take part in this initiative during Ramadan and help?
Volunteering sits at the heart of what Emirates Foundation does as well. We have a great platform called volunteer.ae. We make sure that also a lot of the corporates that work with us invite their corporate volunteers to participate as well in our activities. So we make sure we engage them in the process of packing food, making sure that they contribute to giving back to the UAE through these initiatives and activities that we will be implementing during Ramadan this year as well.
Excellent. How does, or rather what is Naima's plans to continue this mission after Ramadan?
So this is really part of our sustainability plan. So coming back to making sure that we continue to apply these initiatives not only in Ramadan but beyond Ramadan.
Yes.
And being more sustainable and scalable with many of these initiatives, because we've seen the positive impact they're creating on our society. So we will continue to scale up. We will continue to expand, and we will continue to work with our partners to amplify our messages, to amplify our impact, to be able to achieve the target that has been set out for us to achieve a 50% reduction by 2030, which is around the corner.
Which is very much around the corner.
5 years from now.
Yes.
So we all have a critical role to play, and we will continue to invite the UAE community to be part of the Ni'ma movement.
From a hospitality point of view, what can or how can the hospitality industry get more involved in this initiative in terms of catering companies, events companies, restaurants, and hotels?
So we have a regular call to action where we invite many of the hotels, the restaurants to join the Na'ma platform, to apply some of our nudges,
Sure.
to also report to us on data, because that's what's really important for us, to be able to create the right solutions in the long term. And you know, we are always open to receiving also their feedback, their suggestions, because this also helps us improve the delivery of our projects and initiatives.
As a final question, Khuloud, what do you hope to see, not just after this Ramadan, but in 2030 when we arrive at that goal?
I hope that we are able to achieve the UAE's target and more, because I strongly believe that we're capable. I think if there is one thing that I've seen the UAE community do very well, is that we adapt quickly.
True.
And we join hands and we join forces really quickly to create positive impact. So I'm very optimistic that we can together achieve Na'ma's target of reducing food loss and waste by 50% by the year 2030, but also beyond that, continue our sustainability journey for the UAE.
I am just as optimistic as you, and I want to thank you for the work that you do with the foundation. It's a very needed and important initiative, and we would also love to support you in this initiative, and we'll do also what we can, and you know, take care of our own waste, you know, so that we can reach the target too. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you for what you do. It's very important work.
Thank you so much, and I'm glad that you also joined our movement.
Of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you.